Hi everybody, this is Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made for the December A Punched Out Thursday to Die For hop. In this hop, we use our punches and our dies and we create scrapbooking layouts. In most of my A Punched Out Thursday to Die For layouts, I use several punches or several dies or both. In this layout, I only use one die, but it's a very prominent part of the layout, so hopefully you won't mind. I was scrolling through my Instagram feed and I saw that 49 and Market has a monthly sketch. And it seems that if you create a layout using this sketch, you can be selected at random to be a winner for that month. And I just thought that since I was going to use some 49 and Market papers and embellishments for this layout, that I might as well try and use their sketch. My layout does not end up looking very much like the sketch, but it was a really good starting point. I started off this layout with a piece of pattern paper from the 49 and Market Peace and Joy collection. I am using a stencil I got in last month's My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit to create some poinsettias on the background. I love this stencil. I've used it on quite a few layouts now. I'm just using some modeling paste with it to give the background a little bit of texture. I'm putting some of the modeling paste on the top where there's a lot of contrast. I'm also putting some on the bottom as well, just to add a little bit of texture. I didn't mention that I just used one sheet of the 49 and Market pattern paper. I cut it in half and then I flipped one side over so that the A side and the B side are both visible. And then I attach those two 6 by 12 inch strips down to another piece of paper. Usually when I add texture with a stencil and some modeling paste, I am not really too concerned about having half of one image on the page. But in this particular case, I really didn't want this to look messy. I wanted it to be a very neat stenciled look. So I use the palette knife and I scrape away any excess modeling paste so that the poinsettias look crisp and clean. I wanted to add at least one more poinsettia on the top of the layout. So here I am trying to line up my stencil with the poinsettias I already have applied. I was trying to be very careful with the stencil. I didn't want to press it down on top of the poinsettias that were already there because I didn't want to smush them or smear them. It would probably have made a little bit more sense for me to use my heat tool and dry those poinsettias that were already there. But of course, I didn't do what made sense, but I did end up adding a few more poinsettias and nothing got squished, which is a miracle. And why take that chance when you can just use a heat tool and dry them? I'm not really sure, but that's what I did. I kept adding poinsettias because I didn't want the pattern to be too symmetrical. So I kept adding additional poinsettias until I was happy with the design. And now I'm adding some watered down white acrylic paint to the background. I thought that some white splatters would look nice along with the modeling paste. I am mainly trying to get them on the top of the layout because, of course, the white splatters won't be particularly visible on the bottom. There's all different ways to make splatters. Sometimes I'll tap my finger against the base of the straw. Sometimes I'll use scissors and I'll tap the scissors against the base. I find that when I tap with my finger, the splatters come a little bit larger, and when I tap with something hard like scissors, the splatters are a little bit smaller. I wanted a couple of splatters in the upper left-hand corner, so I just dabbed those on. I'll do that every now and then when I just can't get the splatters where I want them to go, and I added just a couple on the bottom. And then I put the background aside to dry. This is where I use that one die. This is a Spellbinders die. It's from a set called Thinking of You Scalloped Rectangle. I'm using this rather large die. I'm going to put my photo behind it. The die cut had a lot of openings on it and I wanted it to look more solid. So I'm using another piece of paper and I'm going to cut out a solid background for the frame. And the frame is going to be red. These are the opposite sides of the papers than the ones I'm going to be using. So I'm right now cutting out the inside of the frame And then I'm going to use some detail scissors and cut out the scalloped edge. There you could see the color of red that I'm going to be using. I usually only buy the 12 by 12 inch 49 and Market paper packs. For this collection, the 49 and Market Peace and Joy collection, I really liked it, and I was thinking I would give it a try to buy the 6 by 8 inch paper pack. I thought it would be great to have some smaller pieces of paper and not have to cut into those larger papers and save those for backgrounds. So I used 2 red pieces of paper from that pack, but I was thinking I wanted the red to be a little bit darker, so I used some Distress Oxide in Lumberjack Plaid, and I inked that entire piece that I'm going to put behind the die cut piece. I liked the way the red frame looked with a lighter paper behind it, but I knew that I was going to have a lot of embellishments, as I always do on my Christmas layouts, so I thought I would keep it kind of plain and all red. And I think that you can really appreciate the pattern of the die cut frame even with the red paper behind it. I trimmed a little bit of the bottom layer back a little bit, and then off camera I added my photo. I forgot to record that piece, and then I put a piece of white cardstock behind the entire frame and photo just to help to make it a little bit more sturdy. And now I'm using some fun foam, and this will add just a small bit of dimension to the photo cluster. On the sketch, the photo is on the left-hand side, so that's where I was originally thinking I was going to put my photo, but then I decided that I liked the way it looked on the right-hand side because of the way the modeling paste looked with the photo placed there. However, I peeled the frame off of the photo because I felt that I needed to add a little bit more of the Distress Oxide in Lumberjack Plaid, and then I also wanted to add some black to the edges. I am using Distress ink in black soot to do that. And I added it to the outside edges and the inside edge as well. Luckily, I was able to just layer it right back onto the photo again. Then I added some ATG adhesive to the back of the foam. That will hold my photo down, but it will not prevent me from moving it around a little bit, which is something that I just might do. So that works out really well for me. Later on, I'll go back in with some gel glue and attach it down when I'm 100% sure that I have it in the right spot. To add some embellishing to the left-hand side of the photo, I use 2 trees, and then I also use some poinsettias, and I'm inking the edges of anything that doesn't have a white edge on it with some black soot distress ink. I had planned on using matching embellishments from the 49 and Market Peace and Joy collection, but then I realized I still had quite a few embellishments from last month's My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit, and that was the 49 and Market Christmas Spectacular collection. So I ended up mainly using those embellishments. I just really liked the bright red and the traditional Christmas green, and I thought it went really well with the green that's in the background. I'm using this very large poinsettia die cut to anchor this title cluster. I have this title that says amazing. I'm using some fun foam to pop that up a little bit. I wanted to add to the title with, I think it was a sentiment that I cut from a branding strip. It said something about the best time of the year, and I just cut out the part that said time of the year. So now it says amazing time of the year. And I wanted to have a little bit of black in each of the clusters, so I thought that that would be perfect. I'm adding some tickets to the top of the cluster. I don't know if I went a little overboard with making this cluster too large, but I really wanted to add some tickets in, and I thought that they looked nice kind of peeking out of the top of the cluster. And then I also layered in some holly leaves and some stars as well. I also included a very tiny round sentiment that says jolly, and I placed that on the left-hand side of that large red ticket. I began arranging those elements to the left of the photo again, and then I was thinking it would be nice to have a small cluster in the upper right-hand corner. I tried using this very large black star. It was a little too big for that corner, but I did think that these bells would look nice on top of the photo. And then I also wanted to add a sentiment under the photo. This says Merry Christmas. Well, I attached that down right at the bottom, and then I was considering a couple of things that I might add to the right of the photo. I tried that black star there as well, and then I tried a gift and a red star. Those don't stay there either though. And then I thought that since I had some gold on the photo, it would be nice to have some gold somewhere else on the layout. I found a die cut that had 2 bells on it, so I included that in the bottom cluster. And then you can see I switched out that star for the small Christmas tree, but I end up taking that away, and there in the end is nothing on the right hand side of the photo frame. I worked on the cluster to the left hand side. I first had a red star, and then I replaced it with a black star. And then later on, I'm going to replace that black star once again. I just couldn't find the right spot for that particular black star on this layout. Now I'm happy with the way the elements are arranged in the cluster to the left of the photo. So I used some ATG adhesive and I attached everything down. Because I had already created a number of layouts using these embellishments, some of them were already inked with some black soot distress ink just on the edges. So any that weren't, I went in with the dauber and I inked the edges. I also attached down the 3 embellishments in the upper right-hand corner. Then I added a snowflake with a black background to the middle cluster. I tucked it right behind the poinsettia. And then I embellished the frame with some pearls. So I started off by taking these tiny pearls. These are strips of pearls that I've cut into individual pieces, and I placed one on each of the scallops going all the way around the frame. These pearls are from Paper Studio. I got them on a big clearance sale last year sometime. I'm adding 2 to each of the corners just to make the corners look a little bit different than the rest of the frame. And now I'm adding 1 tiny pearl to each of those 3 circular sentiments. There were some holly leaves. I was going to put them in the corners of the frame, but then I decided to put the pearls there. So I put 2 at the bottom of the frame and then 1 in each of those other 2 larger clusters. I wish I had just 1 more for that top right-hand cluster. I had inked the edges of those holly leaves, and then I put the ATG adhesive on the back of one of them while it was leaning against the background, and some of the ink came off. So now I'm using some Dr. P.H. Martin's Pro White. This is kind of a whiteout for my scrapbooking projects. I really like using it and having it on hand. I don't use it that often, but sometimes it comes in really handy when I need to fix something like this. And I didn't want the background to have a black blotch on it, and this covered it up really well. Now I'm adding some Eyelet Outlet enamel dots to the background. I'm putting a white dot in the center of all of those poinsettias that I made with the modeling paste. I'm even putting the enamel dots on the bottom where you can't really see the poinsettias as much, but I thought that it would add a little bit of texture down there too. On the upper left-hand corner, there's a poinsettia that is half off the page, but I knew that some of an enamel dot would fit there. So I added an enamel dot, and then I used my scissors and I cut the top off just so that there would be an enamel dot there. I ended up switching out that black star for a red star. I just thought that the black looked just a little bit too weighty in that area since there's not a lot of black in the embellishments on the rest of the layout. And then I also wanted to add a little bit more to the frame. So I'm again using those same strips of self-adhesive pearls, and I'm putting them all along the edge of the frame. That was the very last touch, and here are some close-ups of this layout. Don't forget to check out the channels of the other A Punched Out Thursday to Die For collaborators. I want to send out lots of love to Sonia. Please check out her channel. It's wonderful. And I also wanted to say happy birthday to Kathy, who recently celebrated a birthday. And thank you to Ronnie Sue for always sending me those great shopping tips. I hope that everybody has a fantastic day. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope to see you all again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.